Hey folks, time for another Q&A on Earth's disaster cycle. This is the ongoing magnetic pole shift, the entire solar system shifting, leading up to eventually the solar micronova. But we're going to start by debunking something that keep hearing come up in these discussions, and that would be the photon belt. The photon belt is not a thing. What we have is near the center of the galaxy, powerful magnetic fields have trapped electrons in an electron belt, and the electrons are accelerated within the field to such a degree that they are emitting ultraviolet, X-ray, and sometimes gamma ray light, gamma ray photons, X-ray photons, things like that. The photons themselves are not trapped in the belt, it's the electrons, and the electrons are causing the photon emission. So the photon belt is not a thing. And in terms of this electron belt, no, we are not anywhere near it. I've heard people say we have come into contact with it. Not even close to true. It is somewhere between 20 and 26,000 light years away over at the center of the galaxy. Got a question about pole shift and animal migration. I guess I'm happy to address this again. We have talked about it a lot in the disaster movie, in all of the books, and in several of the subsequent videos here in the disaster playlist. Thus far, we have seen it go beyond birds. We've seen it hit turtles. We've seen it hit whales. We've seen it hit other mammalian species. I wouldn't be surprised if the magnetic pole shift is related to the outbreaks of lots of species walking in circles. Something to remember, there is actually some kind of a brain disease. I don't know if it's a fungus or an amoeba or something like that that will cause animals to do this. But when you see, like just happened a couple weeks ago, where there's several different species in different parts of the world, all making that, just walking in a circle, those outbreaks like that are much more likely to be a weird navigational electromagnetic thing. But essentially, all we've seen is a relatively minor effect on this so far. And of course, minor, again, being relative. Pretty disastrous for the species that it has affected so far, but eventually it will get to a point where it is going to affect the entire food chain top to bottom, as both the marine, the aviary, and the land mammals are affected by this. And so yes, this is going to be a huge aspect to it. I get asked fairly often about the event that happened in 536 AD. That's pretty much 1,500 years ago. And as you know, we mostly are talking about the fact that the 12,000 year cycle is due to reset here, but there's also the half harmonic at 6,000 years, the 3,000 years, and then half of that at 1,500 years as well. 1,500 years ago, and there's about a 20 to 50 year play in this, by the way. It's not exactly to the moment 1,500 years, but the year 536 is about 1,500 years ago, and I would have to say that that would be the latest Holocene version of a Dansgaard-Oeschger event. They don't look like they did during the glacial cycles, but we still have these major events every 1,500 years, even in this current interglacial called the Holocene. And so yes, I would say that what happened in 536 AD probably would count as the last 1,500 year cycle. Still get people asking all the time, how deep do you have to be? Will earthen homes work? I know I've mentioned this a bunch of times, but 4 more people asked about it in the latest series of questions. So again, you don't need to be tremendously deep underground, enough to protect you from the weather and protect you from some basic radiation. The radiation is not going to penetrate very deep into the ground. Something like an earthen home would work, provided it's built properly. Again, you don't want to go too deep. There will be something like a global earthquake. Everything from the seismic activity to geothermal activity will be relatively unpredictable, and that gets more and more so the deeper you go. As you know, I don't favor the deep underground military bases or anything super deep underground. I can't sit here and tell you every single one of those is going to fail, but given what we expect with the global seismicity, a lot of them are going to basically just be collapsed in on themselves, not to mention covered with water or mud or both. So you don't need to be very deep. Yes, an earthen home works. You know, some people might call it a hobbit home, whatever you want to call something like that. Things like that are going to be a fairly good option, provided that you are doing it in the right part of the world. You know, if you make a hobbit home in the middle of Florida, I can't help you. It is what it is. Last question we were going to ask. I've had a couple people try to lay out the timeline here, and usually I see people put the Earth beginning to turn over with the crust being unlocked from the mantle upon the flash of the micronova, and that's not the case. That would be when the shell hits us and the super geomagnetic storm occurs. That's what induces the current all the way down and through the low velocity zone into the mantle, probably all the way to the core. And that will actually be the thing that unlocks the crust. And by the time the shell hits us, most of the highest energy cosmic rays from the micronova itself will have already come and passed. And so the question stems from, when do I look for my flotation device? When do I look for the waves to be coming versus when do I look to hide underground? When the crust starts to shift, the shell has hit us, and that's when the majority of cosmic rays have already hit us as well. So that's when you could start to think about the crust being unlocked, the waves coming, looking for your flotation event, etc. Quick little thing here. I mentioned this morning that we have the event coming up January 7th in Cheyenne, Wyoming. Last time we were in Cheyenne was in the Mobile Observatory project. Really enjoyed it. I do like that part of the country. Link down below to the event if you'd like to come. And also right here, we are looking to do a Blitz tour at some point, either in March or April, somewhere around there. In about 14 to 20 days, I'm going to try to hit about 10 cities, and we're going to try to go have them pretty evenly distributed around the country, with the exception of the south central portion of the country. Our last event was in Houston. That was a really fun event, by the way. Thanks everyone for coming out. But here's the list of areas that we're going to be trying to hit in the new year. And so let's say you've got a venue that you wouldn't mind opening up to observers. Pretty good way to actually start connecting with other observers if you want to do that, whether that's a restaurant or an event space or something like that. Of course, if we can't find that, we will do things like we've been doing, like rent out a hotel conference venue or something. But I would obviously love to come to an observer's place more than anything else. And so if you are in one of these cities and you have something like that and are willing to host couple dozen observers at the event, please let us know. Otherwise, that's your Q&A for today. We'll see you in the morning for the daily show. Be safe, everyone.